The Virginia Tech Hokies, Real Money Kramer from the Sports Gambling Podcast. Always high on his Hokies. He thinks this is the year. He was talking to me about it yesterday. Hokies were 32-22 a year ago, 14-16 within the conference. And this is a team that did lose some guys. Carson DiMartini, Chris Cannizzaro, Griffin Steig, Wyatt Parliament, great name. Some of they took some hits, but at the same time, once again, they went out in the portal. I feel like I'm a broken record with this, but they were able to go to some big schools and some obscure schools at the same time, and they're getting healthier. I think that's another thing. Clay Grady, Garrett Michelle, and Henry Cook, all back from injury. They get Jared Davis in from Florida Southwest State there. David Lewis from North Greenville, a D2 school. Trayson Hughes from Ole Miss, though, with the Rebels. Jackson Cherry from Mercer. Cameron Pittman from the Highlanders, a.k.a. the Whores of Radford. And a slew of other transfers there. Bieniek. Kramer says that could be decent this year. What do you think? That's just his Hokie colors through and through?
Well, I think the preseason top 8 in the ACC is pretty ironclad. Virginia Tech's not in that conversation, at least in my opinion. But if there were a team or two that could bust open the piñata and barge in on the party, it's Virginia Tech, and we already talked about Louisville. Virginia Tech is going to bang this year. The lineup's legit, in my opinion. And the pitching staff could be sneaky. Brett Renfroe was kind of coming on late last season as a freshman. It turned into, hey, this kid, he's good enough, and this lineup is fucking good. Let's bet it at 2-1 as a money line dog. And it was a fun ride. Madden Clement is a fun arm too. I think he could be legit. He's got MLB bloodlines, I believe. He threw 21 innings. He had a good summer on the circuit. The third starter is going to be a mid-major up transfer, whether it be Cameron Lejeune or Matthew Curtis. Lejeune coming in from McNeese State, or Curtis from USC Upstate. Both of those guys threw 65-plus innings. They were all right at their level. I think the step up in level could be a little much, but it's good enough, I think, in the ACC, where there's some teams where it's like, oh, I don't even know if there's one good arm here. Renfroe, like I said, 4.92 ERA in 75 innings, 78 strikeouts, 32 walks. He had a 139 whip. He didn't give up too many free bags. That's all you can ask for from a freshman. I think if he takes a step up and develops here, he could turn into a middle-of-the-road Friday night guy. And like I said, the lineup's good enough to steal a couple of games late in innings against some of the weaker bullpens in the ACC. Johnny, how do you feel?
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's weird because Virginia Tech, it doesn't feel like that long ago that this was a team that was a legitimate Omaha contender. They had that World War III with Oklahoma a few years ago in the Super Regional when Oklahoma, ultimately lost to Ole Miss, which I'm sick over because I had Oklahoma as my pre-tournament dark horse. That was the emergence of Cade Horton, here's a who. But I mean, listen, Virginia Tech, they always have talent. They always have talent somewhere in the lineup. I mean, Carson DiMartini, Chris Cannizzaro, the last few years, like these have been, the anchors and the mainstays in what's a decent lineup. Like the ACC is so deep that a team like Virginia Tech and some of their guys get lost. And like, by the way, Virginia Tech, Virginia, last series of the weekend or last series of the conference year. That's going to be an insane game. Those always are, those rivalries. But I mean, you look at Virginia Tech. They retooled their whole lineup. I mean, they brought in almost half a dozen transfers. They have 3 guys coming off of injuries. So there's a lot of promise here. You get a guy like Garrett Mitchell, 2023, 340 average, 11 Tates. You have a guy like Jared Davis coming in from Florida Southwestern, stole 37 bags, had a 322 average. David Lewis, a D2 transfer via Clemson, 390 average, 24 homers. Jackson Cherry from Mercer, Ben Upton, shout out Ben Upton, the king of Mercer, batted 290 with 18 bops. You get Cameron Pittman from Radford, a 357 average, 14 steals, 24 RBIs, 25 walks to 20 Ks. I mean, there's a lot of potential talent in this Virginia Tech team. Lineup especially. I think the pitching is a little bit more of a question mark. But, listen, you bring in a couple guys like Noah said, Cameron Lejeune and Matthew Curtis. I think the numbers last year of Virginia Tech's pitchers probably didn't look as good as they could be. I mean, you look at Brett Renfro, the projected ace, the Friday guy, a 4.92 ERA compared to a 3.64 Sierra, which implies he was better than his numbers show. The FIP of 5.75 is obviously high, but I mean, listen, I'm not expecting Virginia Tech to be a contender this year. I'd honestly be surprised if this is a team that makes the field of 64, but I think they could be around 500 again in the ACC. I think they might be able to crack potentially the top 11 or top 12. I just think even though they brought in a lot of talent, all it is right now is potential. They don't have really anything proven to compete with the big dogs in the ACC.
Yeah, my final thing on the Hokies might be the best catcher room in the conference. Henry Cook, 125 WRC plus last season got cut short with a rotator cuff injury. David McCann's legit. He's got some serious pop. He had 9 home runs and 150 plate appearances. And the freshman Anderson French, he's kind of blocked. You can only play a maximum of 2 catchers unless you're going to throw a catcher at first base, which they can't because Garrett Michel's returning, and he's their best hitter, one of the best hitters that they've got. So it's like they've got 3 catchers that could legitimately play at 13 or 14 of these schools in conference, and that's something to hang your hat on. So the Hokies are building something here, I believe.
I think they're a team to contend in the future. Maybe like when we have this conversation next year, I think maybe we can look at how Virginia Tech laid a good foundation this year. I mean, they do have a handful of seniors, but the way they attack the transfer portal this year, I think we can maybe circle Virginia Tech as a dark horse potentially next year.